Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy, Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at Game 4. 2-1 is the series right now. Boston up. They withstood that third quarter onslaught from the Warriors that we've been seeing since roughly the 2014-15 season, is since they've been dominating third quarters. But so far in this series, the Celtics are dominating the fourth quarter in any game that was relevant or, was within reach in the fourth quarter so far in this series. Other than Game 2, they've been within striking distance of every fourth quarter, and that's been sort of the series underline right now for me, how they finish these games. So we'll look at what that means here, Nate, in Game 4. Look at some of the best bets. We will have our player props video up as well, so make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us during these NBA finals with a game video for each game and those player props as well, as I mentioned. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Nate and company have those great articles up there for you. All things NBA finals. Also have plenty of MLB content as the baseball season rolls on. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or a DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or tkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we have for Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, basically the same line as Game 3. Celtics -4 when they were closed at -3.5. It shows you what the public thinks of the Celtics, that they're predictably inconsistent and that they don't really. I mean, after winning by double digits again, you'd think that they would be 7.5 point favorites, which we were all over that alternate line in the previous game. And I kind of lean towards it again, because I think that just the Celtics have to read their own headlines to a degree that say, we come out flat every single time. Let's just pretend that we did not win a game at home and actually bring that full effort. Because, like you said, you take out the third quarter, they're controlling this series completely, especially in the fourth. The Warriors have a 60 net rating in the third. The Celtics have a 50 net rating in the fourth, holding the Warriors to a 72 offensive rating. And you really see the growth from the Celtics team in the fourth quarter. Throughout the whole playoffs, they've been pretty good down in the fourth, so that they've avoided playing in clutch situations because they kind of suck in those, but they just pull away by completely dominating the fourth. And so you see things like a 73% rebounding rate, a 106 defensive rating, 2.18 assist to turnover ratio in these finals in the fourth, 5.0 assist to turnover, 85% defensive rebounding, and then that defensive rating I'm talking about. It's simple adjustments, really. As great as Steph Curry is, it is a very simple mistake that they continue to make by playing drop coverage against him. The Warriors have been taken out of their intricate, complex offense, and they're just running high pick and roll with Steph and saying, Steph, bail us out every single time. And now he's dealing with this foot injury where he's definitely going to play. But if he's in any way not great, he's been great in 3 straight games. Just absolutely fantastic. The one consistent player for them. If he's not, then they're sunk. Absolutely. I don't think anybody is going to argue that, Andrew Wiggins and Clay are going to carry them past this team. And then obviously the other key news on the other side is Rob Williams going to wake up feeling springy like he was in Game 3? You got to look at Rob first and foremost for the rebounding advantage, 47-31 points in the paint, 52-26, 15 offensive rebounds. Rob was a team best plus 21, had 4 blocks, and deterred 15 other drives just by how emphatically he blocked some of those shots, so that the Warriors were like, all right, all we're going to do is run, again, high pick and roll and launch. And even if you're the best shooting backcourt of all time, that's not really sustainable to just launch 30-footers off a screen at all times. So, there's different ways to bet this besides just Celtics -4 to get that plus money. Again, I'm looking at the alternate line. Like we said in Game 3, you can get plus 210 for double digits, plus 140 for them to win by 6. You can zoom out and take the Celtics series here. For them to win in 6 is about plus 200, but for them to win, you pick the exact series order. They're going to win this game, lose in Golden State, win at home. If that happens, then it's plus 320 again, and I don't really see another path to them winning in 6. Theoretically,
I see a lot there.
Yeah. So that's just another way to juice it. But for this game, I know you're looking at live betting the under. I'm fine just taking the under at 214. I mean, all that stuff happened in the third quarter, a 7-point possession, an 11-0 just flurry from the Warriors again.
No, it's true, but I would also look at the second quarter. I mean, the first half ended at 68 to, what was it, 68-56?
Yeah.
At 124. So it was a blowaway. And then, I mean, in the third quarter was mostly dubs. So, I mean, I don't know. You're not worried about, I guess 214.5 in this game. You would say that even the 216 that was scored in that game 3 there was a bit of an anomaly because of that onslaught of offense for those first 3 quarters.
Sticking to our guns here. I mean, we like the under in game 3, and you take away things like a Marcus Smart banked 3 or some of the outlets he threw to the other team that resulted in a dunk. And yeah, you still only went 2 points over with all that ridiculousness, with all the Stephness. And we don't know if Steph's going to be Steph. We don't know if Clay can string 2 good games together at this point in his career. So I think the under, and then there's that match parlay at FanDuel where the under doesn't move. So it's actually 215.5 with the Celtics on the money line at plus 185. The Celtics' path to victory in a low scoring game makes a lot more sense. And the last thing I'll just address is the crowd, which the Warriors have plenty to say about. And I don't really want to talk about whether they crossed the line or anything. But the point is, that's a real home court. It is absolutely one of the best 3 to 5 in the league. And the Warriors, with that ritzy new arena at Chase, they used to have a top 5 home court advantage, right? I don't think they do anymore, Josh. You've been in there. It's now like $5,000 seats that the rich people might show up to late, and there's very spaced out, and it's just not at all packed in there. So for them to pull out a road win here, I would be very, very impressed. I'd be frankly surprised. Like we've said, they've not been a good road team in this playoffs. Basically needed the Mavs and the Grizzlies to throw up on themselves to get 2 of their 3 road wins. And that's what the Celtics do. Granted, that's how they lose games. They throw up on themselves. But so you might as well be betting on the Celtics to commit 15 plus turnovers if that's a market, if you're going to bet on the Warriors. Otherwise, Celtics take care of the ball, they're going to win.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's all these clear correlations at this point, I would say, between victories for the C's and losses for the C's, really. And I'm just focusing on them because they're the better team. And so they're driving this series now. And we know that they're the better team and that they only lose when they throw up all over themselves. Now, I would actually argue that the Mavs, that was a gift from the gods for the Warriors, for sure. That was a series that we're never going to lose. Not just because the Mavs are playing above their pay grade, but because the Warriors specifically own that matchup. The Grizzlies, you can say what you want. I don't know that series was in hand necessarily when Ja went down, but I had more faith in the Warriors at that point than I did the Grizzlies. And there was still that you need to show it to us sort of aspect of it with the Grizz. And I don't know, like we all talked about the sample size of Ja not playing during the regular season. Then we all seem to forget that as soon as the playoffs turn around and we're like, well, Ja got hurt. It's like, I thought they were better without Ja. I'm confused now. We're all confused. But the point is they're here, right? And also, by the way, maybe the Suns weren't quite as good as we thought they were. That's a conversation for a different video. But my point is I would actually give the Celtics more credit than you are here and say, look, the Dubs got here just as legitimately as anybody, in my opinion. I think that the C's got a few bounces, specifically Chris Middleton. I think that's a huge one that if I don't love talking about the ifs, ands, and buts and all that. I just would say that, like, if we're going to have a conversation about what was the biggest impact of someone going down of anybody in this series, of this playoffs, I would say Chris Middleton, because that was my championship team, no question. And I think the fact that they took an amazing Game 7 on the road, no credit taken away from the Celtics, great performance that day. Chris Middleton's in that game. I don't know that we have a Game 7. They were just really, really good. Anyway, moving past that, the C's are very, very good. They're better than the Dubs. That's it, period. They are. And the only way they lose is the same formula that beat them, obviously, in Game 2 with Steph Curry and turnovers, and 32 points off of turnovers turnovers for the Warriors is specifically what it is. It's not just that, you can't turn the ball over against the Warriors because you lose a possession and they're so good at scoring. So you've got to maintain scoring. It's they are so good at scoring off of your turnovers. 32 points was 30% of their points were scored off of turnovers. That's an insane number. That's way above league averages or even the best, performances in the league this year in terms of points off turnovers. That's super high. So it's a very clear difference there. What's going to happen in this game, though? I mean, the other instance of the formula for beating the Celtics, which is you have a wing player or a player from the perimeter that just goes off and doesn't need to get to the rim where Rob Williams would be waiting for him, a la Game 6 of the Heat series versus the Celtics, where Jimmy Butler went off for 47 points. If you do that against them and they turn the ball over like they did in that game, which was way above their average as well at 22 times, right? If they're going to do all of that stuff, or excuse me, it was 18 times, but still 18 turnovers. If they're going to do all that, and then you're going to have someone go off like that, a 3-pointer at the right time here and there from a guy like Max Strus, or in this case, a Jordan Poole or what have you, or even an Otto Porter like last night at the buzzer with that heave. Things turn around for you. So if the Celtics don't give this away, they should win. So to the kind of the same point that we made before game 3, if you want to talk about the spread at 3.5, I would take the Celtics, and even take that alternate line, because why not? I'm going to talk about my favorite thing though, which is the total. And yes, I'm not afraid of the total at 214.5. I wasn't afraid of it last game because I hit it pretty hard. And I stuck to my guns even while all these buckets were going in the second quarter. There was a moment where the live total of that game was 230.5 points. And I smacked the under with an alternate to under on that. And I took under 225, and I wish I would have taken under 220, because under 225 paid me 155 at that point. Under 220.5 would have paid me like plus 205, plus 210. So I would have, doubled my investment there on my return. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm going to continue to do. And then I started to look at the pace in each of the quarters of every single of the first 3 games. And I even went back to the regular season 2 games that they played against each other. And there's a very clear cut difference in the pace. And in an NBA game, you're going to go through the pace of every single quarter. You're going to see the fourth is the slowest. Usually the first is the fastest. If it's not, then there's another one between the second and third that they just explode. But the fourth is always the slowest. It's tired legs. And it's usually the team that's winning going, God, when is this clock going to end? So let's use the whole shot clock. It's just how basketball goes in a close game. So magnify that in the playoffs. In this series, we're talking an average pace in the first quarter of like 102. In the fourth quarter, we're talking about an average pace of like 84, 82. So like that's a massive difference. The second and third quarter flip flop. If the Warriors go bananas and the Celtics don't keep up with them in the third quarter, like game 2, you might see some variance there, what have you. I'm not even worried about the second or third quarter. I'm just waiting for that moment in the second-ish third, quarter or third, whichever one seems right, where that total is just way too high. And I go, there probably isn't going to be 50 points scored in this fourth quarter. So I'd love an alternate under in those instances, just because, like I said, there's this clear-cut pattern that I feel super confident about at this point. And the very last thing I would say is the Celtics right now at -1.5 in Q4 are plus 115 on DraftKings. So, yeah, they've won every fourth quarter, except for the one that didn't matter. And even that one is super close. So why would I not take them here in a situation where Steph Curry can't just do it all himself for 4 straight quarters? It wears on you, and the offense just slows down to that degree for the dub. So I feel good about all that, really, for the C's.
Yeah, my only concern would be that maybe we don't follow the same script as the last few games, because maybe Steph isn't healthy enough to carry the Warriors in the third quarter. And then, it is a lot easier to adjust to that offense. And maybe the Celtics don't need to win the fourth quarter because they just come out guns blazing like they did last game, and they actually hold a 20-point lead. I mean, they were up 19 or something when Tatum almost threw that ridiculous alley-oop to Jalen. Instead resulted in a couple free throws. Al Horford misses, and then they just cough up like a quick 10-0 run by just making mental lapses. It's the critique that the Warriors always get. They start hearing the Harlem Globetrotters music, and they're getting too fancy and full of themselves, and then all of a sudden, yeah. So
turns into Benny's run.
It's just a question of concentration from a young team that that should overall, at the top of the roster, benefit from this quick turnaround, especially with with Steph hurt. I don't know if Rob Williams and Al Horford are specifically going to be great on that quick turnaround, but the 3 guys that the Celtics need to be efficient on offense, Smart, who just, had that 25-5 thing that hadn't happened since 1984 in the finals, and Jaylen Brown, who is right now the Finals MVP, and he's getting 3 times the odds as Tatum. So that is another angle to look at. Yeah, I mean, I don't
talk to me about that. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to know like where you're coming from. Like if there's an argument against him, obviously it's like the 6 straight quarters from the end of game 1 into game 2 where he was a no-show, and Jason Tatum showed up, and even in game 1 where he had a bad game, the 13 assists will carry his narrative. So I just want to know, like, are you hearing that amongst media, or how do you feel about that even on your own?
I mean, in game 1, and the only thing I would take out is the second half of game 2 where the entire Celtics were a no-show. He started hot in game 2. He sparked the win in game 1, the complete fourth quarter comeback, and I think had a team at 27. He had 27 in this one and set the tone completely. And Tatum just hasn't played great. I mean, he hasn't really played good for 4 quarters at any point, and so that's another sign of concern, I think, for the Warriors, that he started to get matched up on Curry, that they started to hunt him, make him work, and the Celtics made the key adjustment of putting Tatum on Draymond so that he was the one guarding those screens, and much easier for him to stay up on Curry and not drop like Horford. Horford is not as important in this series as he was in the last 2. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing I know. So to say you have a 37-year-old that you're worried about on the short layoff, I'm not as worried about it. I just want to know if Rob Williams feels good that morning. And if he could just text that to us, then we can get our bets in and feel great about it.
It's a really great point. Even just the 25, 26 minutes. And I would even say, the C's are out coaching the Warriors in this way. I mean, Kerr going to Gary Payton Jr., like, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes into the first quarter. I don't know if he planned on doing that the whole time, or if they were down double digits in the first half of the first quarter and he needed to figure out how to stemmy the onslaught from the C's on offense. So he brought in Gary Payton Jr. over, Clay, who wasn't doing much on offense, was obviously bricking everything. Maybe it was just to give him a breather, because when Clay came back is when he started doing all of his damage, and my Clay under really just went awry very quickly. But either way, Gary Payton came on, and it indicated to me, and it felt like Kerr was scrambling, and he's just, looking for lineups that he can match up with this team. And he doesn't have them, because the only way that he can maintain the defense that he would need to guard the amazing offense that this team brings, where their shortest starting guy is Marcus Smart at like 6'5", then, if he's going to continue to need that, then he's not going to get the offense. We're talking about bringing guys like Otto Porter on, and Gary Payton Jr., who plays as a 6'2", playing like he's 6'9". But at the end of the day, like, Jaylen Brown can just back him down, and it doesn't matter how high you jump when you're standing under the rim, because Jaylen Brown's big butt just puts you there, right? So I don't disagree with you, by the way, about Jaylen. I think the thing is he has to wrestle this MVP away from Tatum. I would say right now, to your point, he should be leading Tatum, and the odds for him to win are such that you should take him right now. But he still needs to continue at a torrid pace, and needs to sort of play at a slightly higher pace than Tatum. And now Tatum's 9 assists last game on, 26 points, 9 assists. Obviously, you look at Jaylen Brown's 56% from the field, 50% from 3, and you go, yeah, obviously he was the MVP of that game. And if he continues to, he's now the MVP really of 2 games, right? And so if you continue to be that, then yeah, I think that's a really good bet at like plus 300 and longer odds than that, where you might find them. So I think, one other thing to add here, and I think we can close with this, is like, they're better. The Celtics are better. Clay can go crazy. Steph can go crazy. And they're going to need to go historically crazy, right? They both had 25, which is great. They're like 3rd now in terms of duos who have done that in the playoffs. But they need to both go crazy, and then they need a 3rd scorer, because if you look at the Celtics in every single win that they have, and I went through their key players in terms of their stats and wins and their stats and losses for the Celtics, right? So that's Jaylen, Jason, Marcus. You can just start right there as their top 3 scorers on offense. All 3 of them have pretty much the same stats in their wins and losses, because there's 3 of them that can score, 20 to 30 points. 2 of them can score 25 to 40. And then you've got, between Al Horford, Derek White, Grant Williams, and Peyton Pritchard. And I'm not even including Rob Williams, because that's not his job, but between the 4 of them, 2 of them are going to score. And if that's the case, you've got, you've got 4 players that are all capable of scoring at a way higher rate than any, after the 2, all-stars on the starting lineup, the Splash Bros. there's nobody else. Once you bring Jordan Poole on, great. He's such a liability on defense compared to those guys I just said who are all stars on defense and all defensive players between Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart, not to mention one being the defensive player of the year. On both sides of the ball, they're at least even, if not better on offense, and they're just much, much, much better on defense. They just locked him up, man. And it doesn't matter what Steph does. He's going to continue to be heroic. Dubs fans can feel proud of him. But I don't think this series goes past 6 games. And if I'm going to pick 6, like you said, I'm just going to take it to pick the exact order of operation that happens game by game. Say they win the next one, or and then lose the next one and go from there. So that is all the time we have in this one. We do have our player props video up as well, so we want you to make sure you're liked and subscribed to that page and check that one out as we remain hot in the NBA playoffs with those player props. And until we see you next, happy betting.